also am the director of the Center for Conservation of Carnivores in Africa. Tonight's speaker is Amy Dickman, and Dr. Amy Dickman, and we were chuckling earlier today because she's been here several times, and I don't know if you've had the opportunity to listen to her in the past, but she normally comes to the U.S. in October, and then she visits several different zoos and different conservation organizations that she partners with, and it's normally in October. Well, you know the deal. We have the Cardinals here in St. Louis, and they usually make it to the playoffs. So it never fails that here we are again. And I think the last that I heard, the score was 5-4. It was in, pardon me? Oh, I don't want to hear that. Okay. Well, and neither Amy nor I have worn our red tonight. We both have blue on. But we're actually here for a much more important reason than baseball. Very good. So as I said, we have Dr. Amy Dickman, and I just want to give you a little bit of history about our carnivore center here at the zoo. We've been doing big cat conservation here at the zoo for, oh gosh, almost 25 years. But we kind of did it at a more superficial level until about 12 years ago when we actually created the Wild Care Institute, which now is the umbrella organization for our 12 centers. So about 12 years ago, we had a much more structured program. And my program actually started by focusing on cheetahs. And as you know, cheetahs are found throughout the African continent. They're probably still in 13 or 14 countries. So to start with, I was looking and identifying different partners in different countries and supporting multiple efforts. So we were supporting partners in Kenya, Tanzania, Botswana, South Africa, Namibia. All these folks were doing really great work. But more recently, we made two changes. One is that we expanded our efforts to include all carnivore species, the big cats, hyenas, African wild dogs, painted dogs. So because we know that they're all interrelated. And so the other thing that we did also was to focus more in one country. So now we're focusing more in Tanzania. And there's two really great programs that are happening there. One is in northern Tanzania, which is where Amy actually started there, the Tanzania Carnivore Center, which is stationed in Arusha. And they're doing a lot of good work there. But then Amy, about 6 years ago, I think it was 2009, she traveled to Ruaha, the Ruaha National Park. And that's one of the largest natural ecosystems. It's actually a park it's the second largest park in Africa. So she started focusing her efforts there. And that's actually what her talk's going to be about tonight. But I want to give you a little bit of background about Amy. She's the Kaplan Senior Research Fellow in Field Conservation at Oxford University. She has spent over 16 years working on large carnivores in Africa, specializing in big cats. She has a master's degree from Oxford University and a PhD from University College London, and has published over 25 scientific papers and book chapters on large carnivore ecology and conservation. She is a member of the IUCN Cat Specialist Group and the Human-Wildlife Conflict Collaboration, and she helped create the Global Cheetah Action Plan, which is actually where I met Amy about 15 years ago. The first Global Cheetah Workshop was held in South Africa. I had heard about Amy because I knew she was working with Laurie Marker in Namibia for several years, but that was the first time I actually met her and worked with her in that kind of project. She's also helped develop regional conservation strategy for cheetahs, African wild dogs in eastern and southern Africa, and national action plans for cheetahs and other carnivores in Kenya, Tanzania, and southern Sudan. Following her master's and PhD work on human-carnivore conflict in Tanzania's Ruaha landscape, which was supported by the zoo's Wild Care Institute Carnivore Center, Amy established the Ruaha Carnivore Project in 2009. The Ruaha landscape, as I mentioned, is one of the most important areas in the world for lions, leopards, and cheetahs. And the zoo's Carnivore Center is still supporting Amy and her Tanzanian team as they research the ecology of these vital populations and work to reduce the pressing threat of human-carnivore conflict in this critical area. She also advises students on other carnivore research projects, teaches about human-carnivore conflict at Oxford University, and works with wildlife detection dogs to improve carnivore monitoring. She was recently nominated as a finalist for the prestigious Tusk Conservation Award. I think that when you hear Amy, you're going to really enjoy her enthusiasm and passion for the work that she does. So please welcome Dr. Amy Dickman.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much, Steve, and thank you all for turning up and abandoning the Cardinals. I'm going to become a lifelong Cubs fan, I think, just to try and keep the Cardinals out. No, it's a joke. We already have somebody asleep on the floor at the back, so we'll see how that goes. No. All right, I'm going to try and twist this around so I can use the mic. Okay, so just to give you a little bit of background on what I'll be talking about for the next probably maybe 40 minutes, I'll give you a little bit of background to me. Steve's already done that a little, and to the Ruaha landscape, because very few people have ever heard of it. I will talk a bit about our work researching large carnivore ecology, but most of the talk I'll be focusing on our work trying to reduce human-carnivore conflict. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about our impact so far and our plans for the future. So in terms of my background, I've always been passionate about big cats, which is something I always just wanted to work with. Even when I was really small, I kept saying to people, I really want to go out to Africa and work with big cats. And people kept saying, yeah, but what do you really want to do? I was like, no, that's what I really want to do. And they're like, yeah, but it's never going to happen. Tell me the plan B. I'm like, why do I have to have a plan B? So anyways, anyone out there who wants to do it, I encourage you to keep going, and it certainly is possible. So I looked at where to go. I started at the University of Liverpool, which is where I got my undergraduate degree in zoology. And that was linked to Chester Zoo, which is right beside it. And that was great, so I got to spend as much time as possible at Chester Zoo, being there at the weekends, being a general stalker, getting volunteerships, hanging out by the lions, volunteer keepers, all the things that you guys see here at St. Louis Zoo. But overall, my main dream was to join the Wildlife Conservation Research Unit at Oxford University, because I knew about it. I knew the head, David McDonald. I'd read his books. And it just seemed that literally you joined Wildlife, you walked in the door, and somebody handed you a big cat. So we've got David and Andy on the top left there with a lion. These guys have had a huge amount of attention recently because of Cecil the lion, was one of our study lions. That is not Cecil. He's not dead. There hasn't been a dentist involved in that situation. That's David with a cheetah. There's Andy there with a leopard. Arjun with a tiger. So I was like, this is fabulous. So I worked as hard as possible. I finally managed to get a scholarship out to Wild Crew for an internship, and I thought, this is it. This is my moment to study big cats. So they said, look, this is your study animal, the water shrew. This is the UK's smallest mammal. I was like, okay. I thought, well, things can only get bigger. So I continued working there, and things did get bigger. The water vole. This is pretty hardcore stuff for UK wildlife. One of our most endangered mammals. So anyway, worked on water voles for a while, and then finally managed to get to the really big guns of British wildlife, the badger. At least it's technically a carnivore. It has sharp teeth, so things were getting closer. But after about a year, I said to David, look, I want to work in Africa. I want to work on cheetahs, or I want to work on big cats. And I had an opportunity with Cambridge University to go and study meerkats. Okay, they're not proper cats, but it's Africa. And Oxford hates anyone leaving to go to Cambridge. So they said, no, wait. They said, we've got a woman who's about to start her PhD on cheetahs. Would you like to work there? And I was like, yes. So I went out to join Dr. Laurie Marker, who many of you will have heard of and probably talked with because she's been supported for a long time by the Wildcare Institute. So this was a 6-month placement originally, and ended up being a 6-year work sort of with her, and learnt a huge amount about leopards and cheetahs in particular. And that really highlighted to me how important it was to do this kind of work on big cats, particularly in terms of human big cat interactions. Because I don't really need to tell you guys, you're all very well informed, but large carnivores are undergoing a really serious conservation crisis. So for instance, even a species as iconic as the lion has halved in the last 20 years, and that's mainly due to habitat loss and to conflict with local people. The lion has gone extinct in over 33 countries now. That light brown area is the historic range of lions in probably about 1900. The dark brown area was what the estimate was in 2006. The estimate at this point was somewhere around 30 to 35,000 lions. In reality, it's probably nowhere near as good as that, even though that's worrying, because this is the West African map, so they remain at about 8% of their historic range. But this was the estimate in West Africa for that 2006 workshop. They went and did some in-depth surveys in West Africa, and this is the reality of what it probably looks like. So West Africa has about 250 lions left. There are only 4 places with lions. Only one of those has over 50 lions. And so you've really got to wonder about where we're going to focus our efforts. Do we try to save these populations? Do we throw what we can at them? Or do we focus on the big populations that we have left? And these are genuinely hard questions for conservationists because we don't have enough money to do everything. So it's really important that we work out what we want to do. I'm a strong believer in focusing on stronghold populations, big ones, because otherwise if we don't, my fear is that we turn around in 20 years and all of them look like this. And this is just impossible in terms of viability of big carnivores. So if we look at big populations, there are only somewhere between 8 to 10 large stronghold populations left in the world that have at least 500 lions. There's been a recent estimate redone of lion numbers. The IUCN's just released the 2015 lion assessment. And this is what it looks like. So all the red areas are those that have gone extinct since that 2006 estimate was done. So the current population, so they're only left in the orange areas. This is the best current guess. And the estimate now is less than 20,000 lions worldwide. That means that there are now fewer wild lions left than there are rhinos. I think most people feel that lions must be secure because we see them everywhere. Everyone who goes on safari sees a lion. You know, they're so iconic, they're so ubiquitous in media. You just feel it's a species that must always be there. And I think people shouldn't be complacent about lion conservation. I think it won't be the case that they're extinct in 10 years or 20 years, the sorts of things you hear, but it's very possible that within 10 to 20 years there could only be a few small populations in fenced reserves. So we need to think, is that how we want the lion, or do we still want it free-ranging across broad areas and being that top predator that it's evolved over millennia to be? So if we're looking now at the most important places for lions, Tanzania is by far the single most important country. It has just under half of all the lions left in the world, and the Ruaha landscape is estimated to have about a tenth of all the lions left in the world. It's right there in the heart of Tanzania. Its location is important because it has linkages up to the northern corridor, Serengeti in places, and also down through Mikumi out to the Selous area, which is to the east of that box, and down through Selous to Niassa in Mozambique. So these are some of the most important lion populations left in the world. Ruaha is centered around the national park. The whole landscape is about 20,000 square kilometers. The park is about 8,000 square kilometers, making it the biggest park, as Steve said, in East Africa and the second largest in the whole of Africa. It's very important to notice this is an unfenced national park, and the river forms the border along the south of it there. You can see it in sort of dark purple. Now this means that wildlife congregates on both sides of that river, and the southern side is village land. So seasonally, wildlife move within and outside the park, and the village land there is critically important parts of the habitat. So we can't think of the park in isolation. We have to look at village land as well for the long-term conservation of carnivores here. The park itself is gorgeous. It's got lovely lodges. You know, it's getting a lot more accessible to visit. So if anyone is lucky enough to get to Tanzania, I would say don't stay in the north. Make the effort to come down to the south and go to places like Ruaha because it's really spectacular. So as I mentioned, it supports over a tenth of all the world's remaining lions. It also has one of 4 big cheetah populations left in East Africa, and also has the 3rd biggest population of endangered African wild dogs left in the world, and one of only 6 populations that are probably going to be viable in the long term. It also has globally important populations of spotted hyenas and of leopards. However, these populations really have been incredibly understudied. So you've got carnivore populations in Serengeti, which have been going for 60 years. As of 2009, there have been no targeted carnivore research and conservation in the Ruaha landscape, and it means there has been no particular conservation and management plans developed for that area. So developing data on Ruaha has been highlighted as a priority in both national and regional action plans. Also, you've got these very poor people living on that village land, which forms a critical part of Ruaha's habitat. So despite that wildlife wealth, you've got very intense human poverty. 90% of people live on less than $2 a day, and 60% of people live on less than $1 a day. That means that 45% of people are undernourished, 2/3 have no access to any form of clean water or improved sanitation, so diseases like cholera and giardia are endemic. There's very little access to Western medical care, so the life expectancy is less than 50. Because of this poverty, it really restricts access to education, particularly secondary education. So people can go through primary school, most of that is free. Secondary school people have to pay for, and it means that most families can't send their children to secondary school in these remote areas, and it keeps them in that poverty trap, and so prevents them from getting better paid jobs. And then these people have the additional cost of living alongside these hugely important carnivore populations, which inflict major costs on them. So this was a farmer who had 3 cows. A lion came along and killed one of his cows. Not surprisingly, the farmer then put poison in that carcass and then killed 3 lions. So no one wins in this situation. It's just a lose-lose on both fronts, and it's really important, both for the people and for the predators, that we address this kind of situation. So I set up the Ruaha Carnivore Project in 2009 under an Oxford Fellowship, and the idea was it had 2 main aims. So it provides the first baseline data on carnivore populations and ecology so that we can inform conservation planning. And the second one is to reduce that very intense human-carnivore conflict that we know exists in Ruaha. We work on all 5 large carnivores because no one else was there. We took it all, very British. And so we work on lions, leopards, cheetahs, African wild dogs, and spotted hyenas. It started with me and 2 Tanzanians. We wanted to be on village land because that's where all the problems happen. So we looked for a field camp. This was the site we chose. This is from now the centre of our camp looking out towards the national park. It's unfenced, so you could literally just walk straight in. It's about 8 kilometres to the border. We set up the camp. It took about 20 minutes. We discovered later that unfortunately a leopard was already living here in that bush. So we negotiated a timeshare. She had the night, we had the day. As long as we didn't need to pee in the night, everything was good. So then the next thing was to build a kitchen. This is still our kitchen today, although now we have tables. We're very excited by that. We need to obviously to cook. This is the sort of traditional food that we eat. There's a lot of mealy meal, or that sort of maize meal. And to the right, there's some sort of barbecued, charred meat product. I'm vegetarian, so happily I don't have to eat that. So I eat beans every single day. The beans have to go somewhere, so we built a toilet. This was a major construction project that actually turned out to be loads of snakes that you loved this area. That was fun. But anyway, despite the snakes, this was like the highlight, my little ensuite toilet, until unfortunately one day we had a major catastrophic toilet collapse. I have to say, when I was using the toilet. So I was clinging to the edge of the toilet. Turns out this is a common way for people to die in rural Tanzania. Did not know that. So I was clinging onto the edge of it thinking this is not going to be my obituary, that I die in a tragic toilet accident. So I managed to climb out and we repaired the toilet. It's now got a very solid concrete floor. To the left there, and then that's to the right, there's the bucket, so that's the shower that we have. That's the ensuite for the tent. It's very nice. This is the tent, this is Project HQ. And then obviously we've just put thatch on the roofs, and this is what it looks like today. This is my husband coming out to visit. So yeah, it's a nice but fairly basic field camp. So for our ecological work, we use 2 main methods to look at carnivore ecology. We use camera trapping, so these are remotely triggered cameras that take a picture as an animal walks past. And then we also get any tourists or drivers from the park to take photos and record any sightings of large carnivores. For the camera trapping, which is our main data collection, We've got all the normal pictures you would expect from a savanna ecosystem. So lots of curious baboons, loads of elephants who destroy our camera traps by scratching against them. Kudu, lots of other herbivores. There's a good prey population there. What we're fairly sure is a giraffe. Putting camera traps at the right height is really a bit of an epic, but we happened to find, so we got thousands upon thousands of images of giraffe legs, which we were, being sort of typical just scientists, we just squirreled them away somewhere. And then, interestingly, the Smithsonian and Cleveland Metropark Zoo now started to look at something called giraffe skin disease. And giraffes are actually very threatened as well. And one of the problems is this skin disease, which starts, interestingly, on the front legs and then spreads over the legs and makes it less easy for them to move and easier for them to get caught by predators. So they were wondering whether it was affecting their conservation, and they said, we have no idea of knowing how widespread it is across the landscape. So we said, actually, we have thousands of pictures of giraffe knees, so you can look at those. So now these are diligently being looked at by students to look at the spread of giraffe skin disease. You never know what you'll get. We also look at smaller carnivores. So this is an African civet sniffing a python. You can just see the python at the bottom of the screen. That did not end well for the civet. Things like servals, caracals, African wildcats, lots of curious people. And then we had a week of debauchery in front of the camera traps. We had mating aardvarks, which you just don't get. I mean, obviously you get mating aardvarks, or there'd be no aardvarks, but you never see it. And also, as I mentioned, we put these camera traps up on village land, and we didn't know anything about the tribe we were living alongside. We were trying to break in with them, but all we knew about them was that they had amazing beaded underwear. The guys had learnt this somewhere, and they said, we've heard about this underwear. Do you think we could go and ask the women to see their underwear? I was like, no, of course you can't. In what culture is it polite to go and ask someone you don't even know to see their underwear? So I vetoed that. And so the guys were thrilled when one day these Barabaig women walked along, saw our camera traps, laughed with each other in the full sequence, and then they took off the black cloaks they usually wear called shukas, and they started dancing in front of the camera traps. And so our guys were thrilled and said to me, Amy, why don't we have the expensive camera traps with video? It's like, because we're not perverts. But more importantly for me, if not the guys, we've managed to get lots of camera trap photos of all the large carnivore species. So spotted hyenas, who are a bit notorious for chewing up the camera trap and then spitting out the SD card. African wild dogs. Cheetahs, which are very difficult to camera trap because of their vast ranges. And lots of photos of leopards. And lots of lions as well. This one we got about 20 minutes after we put up the camera trap, making us wonder where he was when we put it up. We've also, for the direct sightings, we've equipped 20 park drivers at the moment with cameras, and so we asked them to go out and take pictures and data any time that they see carnivores. That builds local capacity. We've had almost 8,000 sightings now reported by them. You get loads of interesting information and cute photos. So things like group size, reproduction, demography. We get information on prey selection and hunting behavior. Lions here in particular are specializing on giraffe. So we don't know how much it's to do with the spread of this skin disease, but lions have learned that if they chase giraffe into the dry riverbed, it's actually very difficult for the giraffe to step up out of it without pausing long enough for the lions to attack them. And it's an incredible thing to see a pride of lions take down a giraffe, but they're getting increasingly good at it in Ruaha. And they also just take photographs that people feed back to us and really highlight how important and how amazing these species are and how valuable the Ruaha landscape is for them in a way that, you just can't really explain in words. So we've combined the data from the sightings and the camera trapping, and we've managed to build the first maps of carnivore presence across Ruaha. So these look like this. So the red areas are the most important areas for large carnivores, and that red, as you can see, spans both the park and onto the village lands. So it's, yet again, we take these maps to the authorities and we say, you can't think that because Ruaha has a big park and lots of important carnivores, that's okay and that's all we need to do. These carnivore populations rely also on village land, so we have to look at it at landscape level conservation and do a lot of conservation on village land as well. And that means addressing the very big problem of human-carnivore conflict. And this is a massive issue around Ruaha. This is probably the highest recorded rate of lion killing anywhere in East Africa. And this is just a snapshot of a few of the lions that we dealt with, or mainly lions, other carnivores, that we dealt with in early 2011. In this period from 2010 to 2011, we had 39 lions killed around the village we were based in. So given how precarious lions are, it's just a huge issue. We also noticed two things. Firstly, a lot of the lions, well over half of the lions we found, were missing their right front paw, and we had no idea why. Secondly, a lot of the animals, particularly the ones that were poisoned, were heavily pregnant females. So we would get to them, we would realize they were heavily pregnant, cut them open, and see 3 or 4 very close to being born cubs. And these, if you take these out of the population, they've just, that you couldn't do a worse thing than take out heavily pregnant females. So we realized that we really had to understand who was doing the killing and why, and everyone kept saying most killing is being done by the Barabaig tribe. So the Barabaig, no one's ever heard of them, but they're a sister tribe to the Maasai, and they're traditional pastoralists. They wear black instead of the traditional Barabaig red, but they're very much, livestock are everything to them. However, they're extremely difficult to work with. So people just kept on saying to us, you can't work with the Barabaig, it's impossible to work with them, because they hate outsiders, and they're frankly a very scary group. We discovered rather late on in the whole thing that traditionally in Barabaig culture, you either kill a lion to become a man, or you can kill a non-Barabaig person. So as the only non-Barabaig people who had helpfully turned up and plonked ourselves right in the midst of the village, we thought, how much do we really care about them killing lions? If we're next, not that much. But it took us ages and ages to try to break through with them. And we tried everything in the book. We tried all the community conservation stuff you're taught. It was all rubbish, none of it worked. Finally, we ended up putting up a solar panel at camp for our laptops, and we were literally on the verge of giving up working with the Barabaig, and suddenly they all turned up to charge their mobile phones. So this was the way into this incredibly traditional group, was modern technology, and we should have thought about it. If I'd taken a minute to think, I would have thought the very last thing any one of us would give up in the bush is our mobile phones, because that is your lifeline to the outside world, and they use them for all kinds of things. Transferring money, telling someone if they've lost livestock, warning someone about an attack, all kinds of different things. And so before, they were having to walk 20 kilometers to the nearest place to charge them. So this was great. They had a local charging station. They would come up, and it wasn't a great epiphany, but they started coming and watching what we were doing, picking up the materials that we had, and it was that start of an engagement with them. It led eventually to us having a meeting with the young warriors, and we said, come to our camp and we'll talk about what we do. And we had a great meeting with them. So we explained to them that we said, we are not here to cause problems for you. We understand that you kill lions and things. All we're trying to understand is why you kill them, and whether there's a way of us achieving whatever you get from it in a different way that doesn't rely on killing them and is a more conservation-friendly approach. It was great. We had loads of locally brewed banana beer, disgusting and very potent. But at the end of it all, everyone was really happy. They went away, and we thought, right, this is it. We finally, made it in with the Barabaig. We were at such a high point for the project. We thought it's taken 2 years, but now we can start working. Within 4 days, that same group of young warriors went out and killed 7 lions. And this was by far the lowest point of the project. So, and I remember just being absolutely fed up, and I thought, I just don't think we can go forward. I don't think there's any way of working with these guys. So I called a friend of mine, Leela, who works in Kenya for the Lion Guardians Project. I said, I'm just at the end of my tether. And she said, look, they're testing you. She said, I've had to watch lions speared in front of me. They're seeing whether you will keep your word about not, getting them into trouble, not reacting against them. So you have to stand back and do nothing. So it was the hardest thing our team has probably ever had to do. We did nothing. We went and we collected data from the carcasses, but that was it. And after about another 4 or 5 days, the Barabaig came back to us and they said, right, we're going to invite you down to our tribal meeting. And this is the first time they've had any outsiders at these meetings, definitely any Westerners. And they slaughtered a cow. gave us meat. As a long-term vegetarian, I've never been so happy to get a huge chunk of meat. And they said, right, we now want to work with you properly. They said, we lie to everyone. We say we don't do much killing. They said, we kill lions and other carnivores all the time. And if you really want to know why, we'll talk to you about it. So we thought, okay, absolutely, if we have to reduce this killing, we have to understand the drivers. There are 4 main reasons why they kill these species. So the first one, and the one that everyone talks about first, is depredation. This is a tax on livestock, and this is a major problem. It costs people 18% of their annual cash income in this area. So no, it's not surprising any one of us would kill those carnivores either to retaliate against those attacks or prevent it happening again. There are also critically no household level benefits that come from carnivore presence or the presence of other wildlife. Also, the warriors explained that killing lions is one of the very few ways that young men get wealth or status. So if you kill a lion, if you're the first one to throw the spear that hits a lion, regardless of whether you're the person that actually kills it, you're the one that gets to go up and cut off the right front paw. Then you take the central claw and you wear it on an amulet. He's got one on his right arm there. And you go to the local witch doctor and he gives you permission to go around all the other Barabaig families and they give you gifts of cattle for your bravery. So this is one of the ways that young men can get a cattle herd built up, which is very important then for getting wives. So young men can get about 20 cattle for killing one lion. That's worth about $4,000. So they said it's really one of the only ways that we can get income and it gives them status in the community. So the last thing, there was always a huge lack of understanding about the importance of Ruaha and the importance of why anyone should care about these species. So we have to deal with reducing all of those threats. We didn't know how to deal with any of them, but we figured we would start with the first and the easiest threat, and that's reducing attacks. 65% of attacks happen in local livestock enclosures called bomas locally, and they are usually made of thorn bush, they're rubbish, I could jump over them. So a leopard, it's not really very challenging. So we have an initiative where we do a cost-sharing program with the local households. They pay 25% of the cost, we pay 75%, and we reinforce it with this very sturdy diamond mesh fencing. We've done over 100 of them so far. They are 99% effective at reducing attacks. So it's slashed carnivore attacks in the local area. They safeguard at the moment over 13,000 livestock every night, and that's worth about $2 million for an investment of about $50,000 from the project. So for the guarding dogs, so this is, the bomas are great at what they do, but the risk is that you've also got to look at attacks out in the bush. On grazing livestock, it's about a third of attacks happen there. And the risk is that as you prevent nighttime attacks, you might end up with more daytime attacks. So we worked with Laurie Marker at the Cheetah Conservation Fund again, and we brought in the first specialised livestock guarding dogs that have ever been placed in East Africa. These are Anatolian Shepherd puppies. They look rubbish as guarding dogs. You give them to a farmer and they're like, what is that? Have you seen a lion? It's massive. So these look like bait, but to be fair, they grow quickly. And they have done very, very well. So we've placed 10 so far. One got killed at 7 months. The one on the left there got speared in an intertribal conflict, which was bad. We couldn't have predicted it, but it also shows how valued those dogs are, because in the conflict they wanted to take out something that the family valued and couldn't replace. So they killed the dog. There's huge amounts of demand now for these dogs across other families. So we've shown that they're about 1.5 years old now. They can grow well, they can live out there, so it's something we really want to develop. There have been no attacks yet on herds that are with the dogs, but it's obviously early days. There is really high demand locally now for these dogs, and it's really changed local attitudes towards dogs. At the beginning, no one wanted a dog because they don't really value dogs at all. I remember sitting with a group of people at our camp when we were talking about stuff, and our dogs, we have 2 local dogs as camp dogs, and they came up and they were just getting in the way. So we told them to go and sit in Swahili, and they sat. And the whole community meeting stopped, and they looked at the dogs and they said, "Where did you get the magic dogs?" And we said, "What?" They said, "The magic dogs. Your dogs can speak Swahili." And we said, "Well, they're just dogs. They're just trained." And they said, "Oh, no, they're definitely magic." And we said, "No. We got them from you." The guy who was sitting there had the litter of puppies. We'd got them from him. We said, "You gave them to us, Punya. They're your dogs." And he said, "I would never have given them to you if I'd known they were magic." And I'm like, all right. So we got people into understanding that dogs can be so much more. So they would then come back and we'd give them little bits of bread and they'd practice training the dog, and seeing the dog could understand them was just amazing. So there's a real transition in getting people to think about dogs in a slightly different way. The only issue is these dogs become massive. So that is a bit too much for people in terms of these very pastoralist societies to maintain a dog that big, especially if they're being nomadic. So we are now looking at the next phase of the program. We'll be crossbreeding these dogs with local village dogs and seeing how well those crossbreeds work, compared to just placing village dogs and giving them the same care and attention that we would give the Anatolians. So that's going to be how that develops. We've got to provide benefits. We've reduced the attacks, and both those are being successful, but we've really got to provide benefits for people if we want them to actually want carnivores around. So we got all the villagers to vote on which benefits they would want, and critically women were the slight majority here. And the women have quite a lot of power in these communities, even though they're not very vocal about it. So it was very important to get their views on what would really benefit the community. They came up with the same things any one of us would come up with, I think. So education for their children, better health care, particularly in terms of maternal and infant health, and veterinary health for their cattle. So we started programs on each of those themes. For education, we didn't have any money particularly for it, so we decided a program to twin schools. So we look for developed world schools, currently in the US and the UK, to twin with a local village school. We asked the international school to commit about at least $500 a year for their twin school, and then we go to the Tanzanian school and we buy them whatever they most need. So books, pens, desks, usually textbooks. We've twinned 10 so far, and we've provided thousands of dollars worth of equipment to them, and it's really, really valued locally. As I mentioned before, one of the biggest barriers to education is getting through secondary school. So we have done these fully funded scholarships. We call them Simba scholarships. It gets promising girls and boys through all 4 years of secondary school, and so far we've placed 16 of them. For healthcare, we worked with the community to equip a local village clinic. The villagers built it, and we provided all the equipment that they needed for a village clinic, blood pressure monitors and scales and examination couches and things. We've provided medicines for the past 3 years to the clinic, and that's enabled it to get to a recognised status now in the government as a proper clinic, which means that now the government takes over some of the provision of medicines, which is much more sustainable, and it treats over 2,000 people each year. So it's really important for local people. We're now developing a collaboration with MedWish here in the US, and they basically send out supplies that hospitals and clinics aren't going to use. And we want to provide vital supplies. We want to provide to at least 3 clinics actually, which should support at least 3,000 people each. Our next stage, when we went back to the community recently, we said, what do you most appreciate from what we do here? They said, the thing we really appreciate is when you come, because no one has cars in the area, when you come, if someone's very sick, if someone's broken their legs, if someone's badly burned, or there's a woman in labour, you come and you take them to the hospital. And they said that is huge for us, because so many people would die otherwise. So the next stage to develop that is to do a mobile clinic. So we're going to try and get a Land Rover ambulance, and it's fully equipped. It costs about $25,000, and then this will be combined with going around all the villages, both treating sick people and taking them to the clinic, and providing education about wildlife. For veterinary health, we brought in good veterinary medicines, but we didn't have enough for everyone. So we just said, okay, these are going to be available to those people who've predator-proofed their bomas, their livestock enclosures. That did 2 things. It limited how many people we had to give them to, but also it was an incentive for people to engage in the BOMA program, and it got back the money that they'd invested in it. This has been really, really important for people. It reduces death to disease, and 9 times as many livestock are killed by disease as are killed by predators. It also improves household economic security, and it means that if they lose any remaining livestock to depredation, they're less likely to go out and put poison down or snares out, because it's just less of an issue for them economically. Now, those benefits have been really well received, but what now we're trying to do is link them directly to wildlife presence. So we do community camera trapping on village land. As I mentioned before, we do our camera trapping, but before we were having issues with them being stolen. The camera traps being stolen on village land because of poachers. So what we're doing now is that we're training and employing villagers in each village to monitor and place the camera traps. They manage them themselves, and then they are given a certain number of points for every animal they get on the camera trap. So for instance, an eland as a large herbivore is 2,000 points. This was developed with the communities, took ages. I came up with the system was 1 to 5 points. They thought it was super cheap, so now it's 1,000 to 5,000 points. The spotted hyena gets people 3,000 points. We do it on endangerment status, so a more threatened large carnivore gets more points, so the lion gets 4,000 points. Cheetahs also get 4,000 points because they're both vulnerable. And the top ranking animal is the African wild dog, which gets 5,000 points. We do it on each individual, so actually this picture is 16 wild dogs gets them 80,000 points. So this is a top spot. We've implemented in 8 villages so far, and it's working very, very well. It's very popular. And the idea is that it encourages tolerance of predators and prey. And it's not us telling people how to do it, because people come to us and say, God, I wonder how we could get more points. Maybe we should stop that guy poisoning those water holes in the southwest area of the village. And we say, great idea, but it's up to you guys as a village to decide how to do that. And they can trade in these points for whichever benefits they most want in the village. So all the villagers get a baseline level, but if they have more points, then they can trade it in for more school books, more veterinary medicines, or more medicines for the clinic. In terms of the cultural killing for the Lion Guardians, we've worked with Leela from Lion Guardians in Kenya, and we've implemented the first Lion Guardians program outside Kenya. This basically is a program that uses the traditional cultural roles of warriors, which are kind of dying out in modern society, and it gives them status to actually use those roles in a conservation-friendly way. So we employ warriors to track lions, to find lost livestock, to warn other people of lions being around. And they also help fortify bomas using traditional thorn bush for people who can't yet afford the wire bomas. They each have a zone that they're responsible for, and they are paid for as long as there is no carnivore killing in their zone. If carnivores are killed, then they don't get paid. So it's a very important way for them to influence all the other warriors, and we take in the most influential warriors to be the guardians, so that they can get their entire age set not to put out poison or snares or spear lions in the zone. We also said to them, what would you really value in terms of giving you status? We give you income every month from your job, and they get that on market days, so they can go straight away and buy cattle. So that gives them the cattle they would usually be getting through killing lions. But we said, what else would give you status? And they said, to be able to read or write. Only one person in the village could read or write, and he was totally ripping them all off. Any form that anyone needed, they would have to go to him. He would fill it out and charge them and do it all wrong anyway. So we said, fine, we'll teach you guys how to do it. So now they've had literacy lessons, and they are now teaching the wider village how to read and write as well. So it gives them education, it gives them money through their income, which goes straight to being cattle, and it also gives them status because we train them how to do camera trapping, we train them how to track lions, we take them to Kenya once a year, and they meet with the other lion guardians, so they become really important guys in their community for having all these other experiences. So far, they found over 1,200 lost stock. They found 10 lost children and returned them to their families before they get eaten. And they've stopped 15 lion hunts happening so far. So it's working well, and it's something we want to expand across the area. The fourth one was lack of education, lack of awareness about conservation. So one of the ways we address this is by doing educational DVD nights. So we show wildlife DVDs on a screen in the village with a little generator. People come from miles around to see these. We've had over 20,000 local people come to look at these DVD nights. They all really want to see Mission Impossible or Top Gun, but tough. We show them Living with Lions, and they will like it. One day we might show them, I don't know, something crazy. We were going to show them Avatar because it was such a great film, but then we thought, well, actually, this really looks like white people can transform themselves into blue people who go to another world, and with the whole witchcraft stuff, it's just not worth it. So we've stuck to educational films. We also, and you guys know this more than anyone else, I think, at zoos, is if you really want to change attitudes, people have to have personal experiences with wildlife and see it firsthand to get that connection. And so if you think about these people, they've never been to the park, they don't really know what it's about, they've certainly never been legally, they might have gone to poach, and they've never seen animals like lions in anything other than a threatening way, when they're either threatening their livestock or themselves. So it's amazing to take them into the park on educational visits, to learn about wildlife in a non-threatening situation. And the number one thing we hear from people is, I didn't know that lions could be gentle. When they see lions with their cubs, and they see them, sort of licking each other and playing and cuddling, it really is transformative in a way that's, you can't really measure, but it really is important to get that empathy going with the wild animals. It's really successful. We do surveys before and after. 95% of people say they're more positive about the park and its wildlife after the visit, and 99% are more positive towards the project. That isn't just nice because it makes us feel happy, but it means that if we then come with new ideas and methods, they're more likely to trust us and to engage with us going forward. And the last sort of thing we really have to do is train Tanzanian conservationists. We have to build up local capacity for long-term success. So all the project staff, apart from me and one other person now, are Tanzanian, and so far we've enrolled 75% of our research assistants in further education. So we're really trying to build the next generation of Tanzanian conservation scientists. If you look at the summary of what we've done, the impacts in the Sturby area, in the core area of about 5 villages, we've had an over 60% reduction in depredation, in attacks, and we've had much greater local recognition of benefits. At the beginning, only 2% of households recognised any benefits from conservation. Now the majority do. It's improved attitudes towards both large carnivores and conservation in general. And we've been asked with Sarah Durant to write a policy brief for the Tanzanian government. We've been asked to help contribute to that. And that's really great to see these experiences translating into national policy. The approaches are being replicated in other sites elsewhere, which is great, what we want for wider conservation. And most importantly, we've had an 80% reduction in carnivore killings. So it's had a huge impact in the local area. We were lucky enough to be nominated and recognised by Prince William as a finalist for the Tusk Conservation Awards late last year. So there's a little video that they put together as the nomination video that I will show you now. It basically tells you everything I've told you in 3 minutes in a much better way. So I could have just shown you this, you could have watched the game. Tough. So this is it. Hang on, can I make this work? Yes. I don't know what the volume's going to be like on this. Unfortunately, I couldn't be in Africa for this filming because I've just had a baby. I have a little girl, Millie, who is now 3 months old, so that turned my life upside down. I miss being in Africa because I think Africa really resonates with people, and the wildlife, the kinds of species you have. There's some connection there that I think is hugely powerful and needs to be conserved for the future.
Before Amy Dickman set up the Ruaha Carnivore Project in 2009, the area had the highest documented level of lion killing in East Africa. In just a year and a half, warriors from a single village had killed 39 lions.
So it was very challenging to set the project up. We knew there was a lot of conflict in the area, a lot of lion killing, particularly from this Barabaig tribe that are very secretive and very hostile. The Barabaig young men were going out and killing lions because they were getting status and wealth. But through working very closely with the warriors, with the wider community, we've been seeing a big change in attitudes to actually being penalised from killing lions, and that was done entirely within the community. Not to do with us. It was a huge transition from a conflict situation to a conservation situation. The Ruaha landscape is incredibly important for lions in particular. It has over 1/10 of all the lions left in the world, and in this area there was the highest recorded rate of lion killing anywhere in East Africa.
In the space of just 5 years, Amy's work has resulted in a 60% decline in livestock depredation and an 80% decline in carnivore killing.
We worked at all stages with them to try to make sure that the programmes made sense from a community perspective, and now it's a complete turnaround from not wanting to work with this to really wanting us to be there in the long term. I really hope that our work does empower local communities to address carnivore conflict themselves, and that's been something that's been key in how we designed our programmes, that if we had to pull out at any moment, we would leave a positive legacy there anyway. One of the ways we do it is employing and training local people in how to respond to carnivore conflict and reduce it, so they can share that knowledge across the wider community, and also by doing things like equipping clinics, providing scholarships, equipping schools with educational materials. You're leaving actual tangible benefits there that we hope set people on a road that changes attitudes, it changes behaviour. This work takes a long time. It can't be done in 5 years. It needs to be done over generations, and we need to commit to that to show these people that we really are behind them. I'd like to see more healthcare clinics, more educational opportunities. And I'd like to see our guys from the team go on and get their PhDs and go out and become decision makers in African conservation at a much higher level as well. I want Millie and all the other children to be able to go out there and have those same experiences and be as impassioned by it as I was. Then I think we shouldn't be the ones to take that away. By the time she is my age, will there be lions and will there be elephants and rhinos? And that's up to us, and I think that's a huge responsibility. As you can see, I was the runner-up, very annoying. But no, it was really good in terms of just getting knowledge and sort of experience and exposure of the project out there, because it's a tiny project in the middle of nowhere. Most people have never heard of it, so it was great to get that kind of interest from Tusk, and we're hoping to build on that in the future. And we have made progress, but there is so much more that we need to do. So we need to do more in terms of our ecology. We want to really expand our camera trapping grids across the wider landscape. We want to equip at least 25 drivers with cameras every year. We want to produce local language DVDs, and I keep nagging the big companies like Nat Geo and Disney and BBC to say, we have these incredible wildlife films, we have to have them in the local language so that it makes sense to these people. They are the people who will make the decisions ultimately about whether we have this wildlife there or not. We've just got we've just got permission and some money to satellite collar lions on village land, so we really understand how they're picking households for attacks. We want to get more information on the demographic data and individual identification of carnivores, so we're building interactive websites where we can use software for the sightings data. We would like to have conflict monitors and lion guardians in all 21 local villages. And ultimately, we would like to predator-proof all the high-risk bomas. So there are about 700 bomas that we need to predator-proof. We also want to twin all the 24 village schools and start twinning clinics as well. So you have a local rural clinic with an international healthcare centre of some kind that can help provide not only funding but advice and support for training. And as I've said, we want to do the mobile clinic programme. We also want to do a porridge project in local schools. So most of those kids walk to school without any breakfast. They go all the way through school in the day without any food because none of the schools have kitchens. And so they walk home at the end of the day, they haven't eaten all day, and that really makes a difference, I think, to their educational attainment there. So if we can do a porridge project, we can buy peanuts, maize meal, and milk all from local farmers, and we can make a really nutritious porridge, and we can give it to the students so we'll employ people, we'll support local economies, and we'll help increase the education of those local children and encourage people to send their kids to school because they would get a free meal. We also want to train Tanzanians, as I said, up to PhD level so that they can take this on. I'm tired. And that we really want to strengthen our zoo partnerships. So that's obviously why I'm here and why I'm in the States. So talking to our partners, St. Louis has been the longest term supporter of the project because it supported me right the way from my PhD through to now. And we're really excited to develop that partnership and take it forward. So in summary, I'm slightly biased, but I think we've made a significant contribution towards research and conservation in this critically important area. And the project is having really important benefits, both for people and for predators, in an area where they both need as much help as they can get. So I would like to thank everyone at St. Louis Zoo and the Wildcare Institute for helping us. It's been a long road, but I really think we're making progress. And as I said, we really hope to continue that relationship for many years to come. So those are the acknowledgements of our major funders. And yeah, so thank you very much. Okay, if people have questions, then let me know. Okay, there's a question at the back there.
How do you solve the paradox of improving the lot of the human population and thus seeing it grow, and decreasing the predation on the carnivores and seeing that population grow, which inevitably leads to greater conflict between the two populations?
So the question was, how do we, if anyone didn't hear it, how do we solve, obviously improving the livelihoods of local people and the populations then presumably, but also improving the populations of lions, which would then lead to more conflict?
How do you prevent that?
Yeah, how do you prevent that? I think the answer is that it's not inevitable that leads to more conflict, partly because if we if you have a population, it doesn't matter the size of the population almost, it matters how well protected their livestock are, and it matters how they live out there. So we did an analysis recently looking at where the biggest lion declines have been, and we threw in every variable we could think of to try to look at what was most linked to lion decline. And we thought population growth would be the major one. It came out absolutely nowhere. The most important things are things like corruption and people obeying rules and governance, and also how people live at a local level. So it's not necessarily about how many people you have, it's about how they live. If people are living there with well-protected livestock, they are keeping themselves safe. Also, if you invest in their healthcare and their education, in the longer term, people will have less children, and because they will be better, they will have more economic stability. There'll be less need for them to have all the children just for sort of rural labour. So I think that's the long term we're talking. We haven't got the 20 years it'll take for that. In the short term, we want to give them clear benefits so that they are obviously have a reason to keep those carnivores around, but by protecting their livestock better, I think the conflict is not inevitable. And we've seen that in our areas, certainly. So we want the lion populations to go up, and it doesn't have to result in that conflict. So I think the point is that the conflict isn't inevitable. Yeah. So have any of the dogs been killed by lions? No. We have had one killed by a snake very recently. So that's always going to be an issue with dogs out in the bush. I mean, any dog out there is at risk, but the whole point of these dogs, there can be a misconception about their role. Their role is not to attack or confront carnivores. Their role is that as soon as, they're basically another eyes and ears for the herder that should be out with them. All too often the herder is fast asleep under a bush somewhere, so you can rely on the dog to be looking and listening out for a predator. If they detect any threat, then the dog starts to bark loudly and gets between the livestock and the predator, but they don't try and chase it or attack it. So it shouldn't come to a physical confrontation. And most carnivores, as soon as they've lost that element of surprise, it's not worth it for them. Because the dog starts to bark, the herder wakes up, the herder checks out what's going on, goes and chases off the carnivore. So it prevents conflict happening without that confrontation. So yeah, hopefully it's not going to happen. Yeah.
Have you heard of the lion whisperer? And if so, do you agree with his work?
I have heard of him. I honestly don't know much about him at all. From that name, I suspect I may not like what he does, but give me a brief, what does he do?
Basically he just works with like lion conservation and just in general trying to like protect them.
That sounds good. If someone, working, I think people who I think he's well known, is he South African or something? Someone told me about him. But does he like cuddle lions and stuff?
Yeah.
So I think raising awareness of lion conservation is key, and getting the word out. Cuddling lions, I'm not a fan of, because it's just ridiculous, in my opinion. I've had a lion sleep on my tent, so I've cuddled a lion quite intimately, but no. I think it doesn't work generally because you end up with that perception of lions not being wild for a start, and also the more that you get people, it encourages that to sort of almost be an endpoint that people like. They want the experience of cuddling with lions, and then you end up with those situations you get down in South Africa where you have all the volunteers go and they, cuddle orphaned lion cubs and help rehabilitate them into the wild. You cannot really effectively, I've never heard of a case of you effectively rehabilitating animals that are well known, in terms of lions, that are well known to people, back out into the wild, because they have lost their fear of people. They're very, very likely to come into conflict with people. And if you're releasing them somewhere that's good for lions, there should already be lions there. So in general, that whole swathe of lion cuddling side of conservation, not a fan. But I have heard he raises awareness, and so I think for him, potentially there is some, there is some positive there, but the whole walking with lions stuff, no. Yeah?
How involved is the Tanzanian government with the local tribes and trying to provide medical care facilities? And I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of things going on, especially with people in very remote areas.
Yeah.
But do you have any sort of resources that you can, look for support or policy or backup for them?
So the question is, how involved is the Tanzanian government in all of this, and especially rural development? The Tanzanian government obviously is trying its hardest to develop those communities, to provide healthcare, but there are a lot of problems. I mean, Tanzania is very, very poor, and also there's a huge amount of corruption. So both of those things together make effective governance very difficult. And that's why you've got a lot of NGOs kind of stepping in to fill the gaps. Also, development in itself almost isn't enough here. We need to tie that development to the wildlife providing the benefits to local people. And the government obviously isn't, it does wildlife very well in the parks and stuff, it manages that, it does some rural development. What we're trying to do is definitely marry those two together. So it's a gap almost in what's happening right now, but certainly they're developing policies. Tanzania has a good wildlife act. They're trying to push this stuff through, but it's just helping people get it through on the ground. You first, yeah.
Some of the overlap with the village, was it because the cattle was just an easy catch, and as it becomes harder, will some of the overlap reduce as they try to go find more prey that people might have to prey in other areas?
So it's about, so are lions on village land because there are cattle there, and would they not be there otherwise? I think the answer is we don't really know because we've never tracked them before this, but certainly this area has always had a lot of lions, and there is actually a lot of wild prey in that area as well. Our camera trapping shows a very healthy wild prey population. So I think the lions, even if they don't catch the cattle, it's not like then the lion population is going to decrease locally or they're going to move out of the area. I think they can subsist well, and especially if we encourage people to keep wild habitat and to maintain wild prey populations, then the lions can be there, but not again causing conflict, because what you want to do is get it to the stage where the livestock are harder to catch than the wild prey because they're well protected, they've got dogs, they've got bomas. So that's where we're moving towards slowly, but that's the aim of it all. And I think then you can have the people and the lions sort of coexist still there. There was somebody down here first, yeah.
Yeah, the person wanted to visit the national park there or your facility. Give us a little outline of how difficult that would be.
It used to be very. So how difficult is it to visit the park or where we work? It used to be very difficult. Well, yeah, it used to be very difficult. But now it's a lot less so. Now there are flights every day from either Arusha or Dar es Salaam into Ruaha, so either the park or Iringa, which is the local town. So people can certainly visit the park, and I would totally encourage people to do it. It's got amazing lodges. It's just a wonderful park. I would go in the dry season, so probably anywhere between May, June, all the way through to September, October. But it's amazing. In terms of visiting our project, people can come and visit. It's a little field camp. We don't really do much there. Well, we do a lot, but we just it doesn't look like we do much because we're mainly on our computers at the camp. But, people can come and see what we do and but it's not really set up for that. It's not like a place like the Cheetah Conservation Fund where it has lots of people coming to visit. But we've certainly had photographers come or journalists come or the occasional project partner come out and visit. Yeah, and it's doable. So it is all possible. Yeah.
I was wondering how much money have you invested into this project, and have you made back that money, or do you plan to?
It's a great question. So how much money have we put in? Do we plan to make it back? We've put in, the project has grown in its budget every year, not surprisingly. So it started off really small, like $20,000 a year. It currently runs at about $200,000 a year, running in the core of where we work. We just did our 5-year plan, and if we want to really work effectively across all 22 villages, we need to raise about $600,000 a year. And that's a fair amount of money, but actually you're helping to protect thousands of lions and tens of thousands of people, and you're protecting the second biggest lion population in the world. So increasingly we're going to partners and we're saying, how are we going to actually get to this sort of money? If we want the international fund or global community to protect lions, this is how we have to do it. And in terms of making it back, we are not going to make it back. We don't have any expectation of making the money back. The return goes very much to the local communities for protecting them, for their economic investments and their sort of future livelihoods. So it's something that we get a lot of existence value, we call it. We get happiness of knowing there are lions out there, but they get the economic costs. So we need to sort of even that burden out a bit. So yeah, that was a long answer to your question. Yes? We can totally develop anything like that. I mean, the way it runs is definitely me and then the team at the moment, and so we don't have people who help us do that stuff, but if people have ideas, we're always happy to, very happy to sort of grow our ideas. And we can always take the idea of the Sister Schools program or the Kids for Cats idea back to local schools and say, hey, we've got a concept note on that schools can say, they can be a twin school and they can get a local school, and yeah, we're happy to grow any of those. So people can always email me and we can figure something out. So we'd love to get more fundraising and more schools involved in particular. Yeah.
Do you offer internships with the project?
I wish we did. At the moment in Tanzania it's really, really tricky. It's not like in Southern Africa. So to be on the research, for everyone who does any research for the project has to be named on the research permit. You only get a research permit once a year, and any foreigner on it has to have a master's, and there has to be a certain ratio of foreigners to Tanzanians. So all those things mean that we're very limited, kind of as it should be in terms of foreigners there, but so it makes it tricky. So we can have people come over for a week or two to sort of see what's going on as sort of tourists, as visitors, but we can't really do the 6-month internships or those things. We're hoping eventually if we become an NGO, we could start to develop that, but not right now, annoyingly. Yep.
Since loss of habitat is one of the main issues at this point in time, and the population of Africa is projected in the next 15, 20 years to double, what is that doing to the carnivores' prey?
To the carnivores, what, sorry?
Prey. Their food.
Prey.
Prey.
Well, again, and this is something we're involved in a big analysis of at the moment, so this is about how, if anyone didn't hear, looking at that habitat loss is a major issue. Yeah, the African population is set to double, they say, by 2050, some estimates are. So what is going to happen in terms of prey? I think this is coming back to the fact that we have to make a situation where wildlife, including prey and predators, are seen as a valuable asset for local people. So the only way of doing that is community-based conservation. Is there are lots of ways that you can protect the habitat. We need to invest in protected areas and actually secure them. And doing that, we need to invest in governance, and corruption, again, is a major issue, so we need to start investing in those sorts of local governance structures to make protected areas good. We also need to invest in community conservation on those borders so that people are seeing benefits from prey and predators and everything else, so that people secure habitat and see wildlife as the most profitable source of income for them. And this is where, much as it's incredibly contentious, the trophy hunting debate comes in, because lots of this habitat is in trophy hunting areas. So as people talk about stopping trophy hunting, there's this huge thing over Cecil the lion and all the rest of it. We need to think, if that happened, it would really decimate a lot of habitat that's there for wildlife. So we need to have a broad vision of how these big policy changes are going to implement it. And it has to be done at a global level. Obviously it's up to the countries involved to put in their policies in place, but we are working we're going to have a Lions Summit next year looking at what should be done with these sorts of questions. But I think it's not just about the numbers of people, it's more about how it's managed on the ground. So we'll see. It's not, it's huge challenges, but I'm confident that it can be done. Yeah.
I'm curious to know how much the lion or the carnivore population can grow and reach an equilibrium with the prey and factoring in the growth of the human population and their cattle as well.
We don't have firm numbers on how much the carnivore population could grow, but the carnivore population has gone down so quickly that I can't really see it bouncing back to where it was particularly. I think the best bet we've got right now is for lions, say that we keep them around 20, 25,000. Africa can have way more lions than that. It used to have well over 1 million lions. So this is a tiny fraction of the number of lions it could have, and certainly the prey base can currently and should in the future even be able to support that many lions. It's much more about the people. The people are the limiting factor more than the prey in many areas. But it's back to the point about habitat loss and also bushmeat trading. We have to have those people not so poor that they are relying very strongly on bushmeat and on killing the prey, because then as the population grows, if those people are taking out the lion prey, you're going to have that empty forest syndrome. So we have to invest in human development as well. So we don't have set numbers, but we just have to work out those equilibrium points site by site, really. Yeah, at the back.
What can we do to most benefit your conservation effort?
What can you do to what, sorry?
To benefit your conservation effort?
That's a very good question. What can you do to benefit the conservation? So I think things like supporting the St. Louis Zoo and the Wildcare Institute definitely helps us. We have, we've got our 5-year plan now, and we're looking forward at identifying partners we can work with in the long term to try to, and a lot of that is about fundraising. But I think that people can play so many roles in this. It's not all about just reaching into their pocket and donating money, although we do encourage everyone to do that. It's about, thinking of what you can do, and there are so many ways people can help. Kids can go into their schools and talk about this, raising awareness, setting up, whether it's fundraising activities, whether people have skills in software development or PR or marketing or advertising or writing, whatever it is, that they can contribute something, I think, to conservation and to not only our efforts but other ones as well, because I truly believe that everyone has skills that could benefit this, because I have no skills in these areas, so we need as much help as we can get. So email me, we'll find something for you to do. Cool. All right, so I think that is pretty much it.
thank Amy again. That was a great talk. And thank you for all your efforts to protect large carnivores in Tanzania. I think you can see why we're supporting Amy and the work that she's doing. Also, I want to acknowledge and thank the St. Louis Academy of Science that sponsors our conservation lecture series. And most importantly, I want to thank all of you for being here tonight. So thanks for coming and have a good evening.